Well, hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. It's Wednesday, a little before 1 o'clock on the 6th. Um, you know, I'm pleased with everybody's work so far in the course. Let me just look at the grading right now. I know that Jenny needs to catch up, I think, on DQ9. Let me just look real quick. Yeah, so she needs to catch up on DQ9 for this week and 10. I'll send an email to her. The community resource papers, just submit them as you have them done. You know, I've been preaching for a while to make those appointments way ahead of time because people could cancel on you. I know that a number of students have had difficulty even getting someone to call them back or to set up an appointment, and quite frankly, that's part of the assignment. I know that there's been a handful of students that really had great difficulty, and if that's the case, reach out to me and I will try to put you in touch with someone in your geographic area. You know, for some people, we're spread all around. If it's roughly in the DC, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, draw just a big circle around DC. I would certainly know people there, but if, there's other folks maybe on the West Coast or wherever, I'll do my best to try to help you out if you need it. So let me see what we got here. Almost all quiz 2s have been graded. There's like one or two stragglers that I need to do, which will lead us to quiz 3. So I'll probably be, let me just go through the grade book real quick. So community resource papers. Yeah, so quiz 3 I'll probably put up in the next couple days and just, follow the same method of operation, give you a week to do it. Just always remember, most people have made incredible strides on the APA issue. I try to do baby steps and just walk you along slowly. But remember, if you have a citation, you have to have a reference. That's just proper writing in APA format and all the above. And I know that Jenny's worked closely with you on the APA issues. So I'm trying to think. Let me just look at our syllabus real quick to see what else is coming down the pike. Oh, one person asked for a model of, let me just go down to it real quick. For the large final paper, the case management paper and presentation. What this is, maybe I should just talk about this for a minute to make sure we're on the same page. So you're going to utilize your persona and put together a large case management paper, essentially covering probably a 2-year period of maybe retraining, culminating with job placement to rehabilitate client or consumer X with the diagnoses and things that you outlined in your persona, leading to them entering the labor market, going to work, you closing the case successfully, all that kind of stuff. The PowerPoint presentations will just be submitted online. Obviously, since we're an online course, we don't meet on campus for this class, so it would be impossible to present, but you'll have roughly about 10, 12 slides. I mean, the paper itself usually is probably about 20 to 25 pages, so putting together a few slides once you have the paper written is not that big of a deal, really. It's because you'll know the case or what you're going to do with this individual, so it shouldn't be that big a deal. On our syllabus, we have, we're supposed to have 5 quizzes. We've knocked out 2, so I'll put up 3. It's early November. Yeah, we'll probably do 2 this month, and I'll leave 1. Maybe we'll have 1 quiz that's worth double or something like that. But look for a quiz by this weekend. It certainly will be up. And then that'll be quiz 3 done by, today's the 6th, probably like the 8th or 9th. And then a week from then, 15th. Yeah, so I'll have to figure it out. Might only have 4 quizzes. We'll wait and see. Maybe I'll even take a vote with you all. If you guys want to have 5, that's cool. We'll do 5. If we just want to have 4, I would just count one as 20 points instead of 10 points. If you have any opinion on that, maybe send me an email and let me know one way or the other if you prefer, to have 4 or 5 quizzes. It makes no difference to me. So now for this chapter, for systematic caseload management, there are no slides in the slideshow for this. It's really a short chapter. It's only about, let's see, 233. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 14 or 15 pages, very brief chapter. And really, in the simplest terms, systematic caseload management actually kind of means different things to different people. To a rehabilitation counselor, it means documenting, planning, coordinating all the services required to assist this person with a disability to achieve their goals. To a nurse, a rehabilitation nurse, it would mean something different. It would mean, let's get the patient in to see the right doctors, have the right surgeries, schedule the physical therapies and things. So they would be more on the front end. To an attorney, it would mean something very different depending on which side they're on. If they're on the plaintiff side, systematic case management means saving money and getting the person with a disability placed or closed as soon as possible. For the defense, it's kind of the opposite side of the coin. Let's just rehabilitate this person, invest in them, and get the case over as soon as possible. And really, in some states, like in Virginia, a rehabilitation counselor is not allowed to really go to doctor's appointments and things like that. In Maryland, they are allowed to. So it just depends where you are, the clients and consumers that you're working with, and so on. So let's talk about it. So really, case management, one of the problems that students have on the CRC exam, hint, hint, is when it comes to case management, because if a lot of professors never worked in the private sector, case management is critical. We need to document all of our activities, plan logically, and enable this person with a disability to enter the labor market. In the public sector, they're starting to do more of case management, like in Maryland Doors, it would be AWARE. In DCRSA, it's System 7, I believe. Many of the state agencies use AWARE, but they're really getting more into the case management roles than they have in the past. And really, it comes down to the outcomes. How are we going to evaluate what went on in this rehabilitation process for this individual? That's working with clients, their families, community rehabilitation providers, educational facilities, physical therapy, surgeons, the whole 9 yards. So that kind of leads us to planning. We need to first set up the goals. We talked about this in other courses, that we're going to collaborate with the individual. And where do we get that information? Starts with the intake interview. So we're going to sit down, and again, if we're in the public sector, we'd be qualifying them for services. In the private sector, their qualification is someone is paying for the rehabilitation. So in our intake interview, we'll be collecting a lot of information, slightly different depending if you're public or private. We'll start the counseling process, hopefully build up the trust, rapport with the individual, give them a sense that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that I'm here to help them, and that everything is going to be okay, essentially. Which leads us to the evaluation phase. We've talked about that many times in the earlier chapters. And by now, hopefully we'll start have like the medical eval if we need it, or the psychological eval if we need it. And we're going to start putting together our rehabilitation plan, or in the public sector, the IPE, Individualized Plan for Employment. We're going to start arranging and coordinating all these services, whether they be work adjustment training, going to the doctors, getting medications, doing job placement, working with rehabilitation nurses, sending them to school, getting them books, maybe getting them transportation, maybe getting them clothes to wear to work, or who knows what. But we're going to plan, coordinate, and purchase rehabilitation services on this individual's behalf. Then once we get through that phase, say the person went and they became, web designer, now we're going to start the job placement phase. So we're going to help them with maybe learning how to interview if they've never really had jobs, getting their resume and cover letters together, setting up interviews, maybe taking them actually on interviews, interacting with the employers, completing the job analysis, and all the things that we've been talking about during this class, quite frankly. Then, hopefully, once we obtain the employment for the consumer or client, then we want to work with the work site, make sure everything's going smoothly. Maybe we need some assistive technology or modification of the work schedule or work duties or whatever. Again, that would be the job analysis that would capture that data. And then eventually we're going to prepare the client or consumer for termination, because hopefully by this time they've been successfully rehabilitated, they're working, they're happy, we close our case and call it a day. Part of this is time allocation. One thing about case management is you got to stay on top of your activities. You can't just put it off a few weeks, because it's like a snowball. It's just going to build and build and build, and then there's an avalanche falling on you where you have all these reports due and things like that. So we know, the intake interviewing is real critical to either obtain the information, qualify them for services, and figure out where do we go from here. The counseling and planning, essentially we want to hopefully offer them a vocational evaluation or an alternative if that's not going to be, say if there's financial considerations, or maybe they're not available or don't want to do that. We've talked about, once the vocational evaluation is done, that leads into developing the rehabilitation plan and then arranging, coordinating, and purchasing all these different services. And again, of course, that will be case by case. Every case is going to be different, or consumer is going to be different. Then the placement and follow-up services. Now, this is one perhaps significant difference between public and private. In the public sector, the person must maintain employment for 90 days until you can successfully close their case. In my agency, where I worked for a long time, it was 30 days. Usually, if the person starts work, if there's a problem, within the first day or two or week, that's when, I can't get into the building, or the workbench is too high, or just working this long is killing my back, or who knows what the issues are. But we'll start figuring those out when they enter or re-enter the labor market. So the period of time just varies depending on your role and where you work. Problem solving, that's kind of like one of our biggest jobs, is we need to hopefully anticipate some of the issues that our client or consumer might face and try to solve those problems. And another thing that perhaps counselors might not be super skilled at, it's going to vary because we are all different people, is the business management. With WIA, the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, one of the big things that the state agencies want to do is start building relationships with businesses and employers. So if you are in a public sector, you know that you probably sent maybe some in-service trainings. I'm sure people have been talking about it, and so on. So really, budgeting your time management is important. It really is. Now, even more so if you're in the private sector, because all these activities, we want to get paid for our time, right? So if you're in the public sector, it's not like every single thing, okay, this phone call lasted 10 minutes, and I need to track that time and put it into a bill. It's not as heavy duty as that in the public sector. But in the private sector, when you're billing third parties, meaning insurance carriers, employers, attorneys, whoever, or self-pay, you need to allocate your time and really be very meticulous of how much time you spend. And you can see how time management principles would be important. You need to figure out how much time you're going to allocate to each client to try to treat them fairly and to obtain the goals that are required. So, one client that might have surgery next week and is going to be recovering for a period of time, maybe I just make some phone calls and things, or maybe see him when he starts physical therapy, he or she. If they're in job placement, then I'm going to be spending a lot more time and effort with them. So one of the variables would be, where are they in this rehabilitation phase? One of the biggest problems with time management is procrastination. And I've seen it many, many times where people will put off doing these reports or documenting their case management activities. And quite frankly, sometimes things are lost. They fall through the cracks. A little hint would be is after you meet with the individual, at least jot down some notes. If not, start writing your reports and so on. There are several different types of computerized software that you can do case management. I mentioned a couple of them, like Aware is one of the bigger ones for the public sector. The private sector have a lot of different proprietary computer software programs, meaning perhaps that agency had someone come in and design it just to fit those specific needs. So they will vary tremendously from private agency or private practice to another. But there are some out there that you can buy, or you can just do it the old-fashioned way, use Excel and things like that. So, in a nutshell, systematic caseload management really relates to my functions as a counselor, my interactions with the client/consumer, as well as many other individuals, medical personnel, psychological personnel, employers, maybe training sites, and so on. Recording all these activities that we're doing and documenting it and allocating my time, and of course in the private sector, billing for said activities. Making sure that the rehabilitation process is flowing. We're obtaining our goals that were set out in our IPE or rehabilitation plan. Having a systematic way to monitor the progress or lack thereof is important. And basically prioritizing. Maybe someone that has a great interview tomorrow, that might be a higher priority than running around and seeing this person at physical therapy when he or she will be there 3 times a week. So that just kind of gets back to the time management and prioritizing what's going on. And again, last hint, do not procrastinate, because it will make your case management activities, functions, and documentation more difficult. And it really kind of takes discipline to some degree to do effective case management. So read through the chapter carefully, knock out the discussion question, make sure that you have appropriate citations. I think for this week, let me just pull it up, because I think for this one I asked for 4. Let me get my computer going here. I got 2 computers going simultaneously. Just pull this up. I think for this DQ, let me look just so I'm not saying it wrong. So for this one, I'm asking for 4 or 5 citations. So for those 4 or 5 citations, of course, you can use a textbook, try to use other sources of information, or to be kind, if you look through the textbook and you'll see, like Rodney Isom, ISOM, he cited when we're talking about the computerized case management software, you can utilize those authors that are cited in the textbook as well. But really put together a good DQ and make sure that you have references covering all of your citations. Final thought, another quiz will be coming down the pike, hopefully within a day or 2, but certainly by this weekend. And I'll give you a week to take care of that quiz. That'll leave us 2 more to complete. And then what we'll start really doing is thinking and talking more about our case management paper. Let me see. I'll try to get you. I know students always like to have like a model. Let me see if we have one. There actually is one in here. There's a sample case management paper all the way at the bottom in the file section. So if you want to see what one looks like before you start putting together your paper, it's a good idea to print it out and just look at it to see what the main points are. One is in there in the file section, the very last document there. So without any further ado, have a great week. If you need anything, please let me or Jenny know, and just keep up the good work, and I hope you're enjoying our class so far. So have a great week and take care. Bye-bye.